with that, we head over to our Sounders, who we finally have past games to look at. We don't have any real in-depth stuff to go into, but the Sounders played 2 preseason matches over the course of the past week. They were not streamed. They were not open to the public. They are in Marbella, Spain at this current point in time as they prepare for the Club World Cup. They played on two matches on January 28th versus Wolfsberger AC, which is a 0-0 draw that was mainly consisting of the starters for the club. Some chances, but ultimately Fry and co. are able to get the clean sheet, while the offensive unit was given a clean sheet as well on the other side of things. And then the same day, a squad of mostly reserves versus Hammarby IF, a 3-2 loss, mostly reserves, as I mentioned. Freddie Montero scored a goal in the first half. Seattle scored, Georgi Minanogu, who is actually a record signing for the Tacoma Defiance. We'll have more on that when we get our CSS minor league stats, account going up. Scored as well before the half, giving Seattle a 2-1 lead. Seattle would give up a corner goal at the 45th minute and later concede in the second half, unable to answer and lose that one as well. Not too concerned about any of that, really. Again, it's preseason. Some of the stuff that I will note, though, when it comes to these preseason matches is sort of the injuries and some updates that we got on some of those, most notably Joao Paulo. So we look at those. As you can see, Joao pictured here on the 24th, it was announced not announced, but we learned via an interview that he did that Joao Paulo is at about 90 to 95% fitness. He said he might not be fully cleared in time for the Club World Cup, but he will be able to start for the beginning of the MLS season. He did all of his rehab in Seattle as opposed to his home Brazil because his family has already settled in here in the Pacific Northwest. So that's kind of cool to hear. Otherwise, other updates, some people have been wondering about Obed Vargas. On the 27th, the young midfielder was announced that he'd been a full participant through the training and was with the first team throughout their course of time in Seattle before leaving for Spain. On the 30th, though, the days after those 2 preseason matches that we mentioned, Obed Vargas and Dylan Tevez missed those games due to minor injuries. So again, you hear minor, you hope it really is minor, right? But hopefully it's nothing to worry about quite yet. Some team notes here on the 22nd was when the club arrived in Marbella, Spain for the preseason. On the 26th, we found out with the whole preseason, there was some worry that Seattle was only going to play those 2 preseason matches. They announced that the club will play a friendly match against Louisville City in Seattle on February 18th. There's no news on whether that'll be open to fans or not. I would hope that would be, but with the opening of the arena and such, it's maybe that's at Starfire. That's all we know is it's going to take place against Louisville City in Seattle on the 18th of February. So hopefully we'll get that to stream as well so people can watch that. We can get some actual notes from that match as well. Looking ahead outside of, we don't have too much outside of that. We have some injury updates, those preseason matches. We don't even know who the Sounders will play yet in their Club World Cup match, but we do know when it'll take place and who the possible options are. So that'll take place on February 4th so it's this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. I know that the Sounders are hosting an official watch party at the Armory. Sounder at Heart, a SB Nation outlet that's obviously covers the Sounders, is doing one at Queen Anne Beer Hall. So, those two are like a few blocks from between each other. So it doesn't really matter, I guess. They'll either face Auckland City from New Zealand or Al Ali SC from Egypt. In that those two will have to play. I believe that's on the 1st. Whoever those teams ends up victorious out of, Seattle will face. And then if Seattle's able to beat one of those respective clubs, they will go on to face Spanish powerhouse Real Madrid. And that's just like the stuff of dreams to face a club with that sort of history, of that sort of caliber. At that point, I know that the Sounders have talked about just being happy with not being happy with just getting into the Club World Cup. But I think at that point, I would be okay with losing to Real Madrid. So, that is that for our Sounders section.